Thank you for coming all the way from LA.
Thank you, Talley. That was amazing. I know I'm speaking for both Aaron and me, that is really generous, and I'm so honored. And actually, Aaron is a huge part of what I wanted to say, and then I'll open it up for quick questions before we go in his awesome room. But I am just thinking about being in Texas because this is where I'm from, really, and I now live in Los Angeles. But being here this month marks 23 years since I had my first ever solo art show, which was at a Starbucks in a Barnes & Noble in Hurst, Texas. My parents can vouch for this. And it's just kind of weird. I realized on my resume I was a little too ambitious at a younger age. So this is the 20th solo show I've had, and now I'm almost 40. And to be back in Texas for this with Talley, who I've known since I was basically a kid and wanted to just know everything she knew, followed the gallery all along. Aaron and Sharon are the reason I moved to Houston and lived there for a decade, because I was so obsessed with their artwork. And I moved from Chicago just going, what is going on in Houston? These badasses are everywhere. And I still believe that. So to be back here in Texas with this kind of community and this much support, it just brings me back to the roots of why I became an artist, which also had a lot to do with just places like Half Price Bookstore. It's a possibility to really just be an artist. I remember I got this book. My mom got it for me for 25 cents. They have it in the library here. It's called 50 Texas Artists. And so many of Talley Dunn's artists were in that book before Talley Dunn Gallery even existed. So anyway, this is sentimental. I get that, but I'm okay with that. I don't get embarrassed about being sentimental. And it also just got me thinking about my beginnings as an artist, and that's kind of what this show is about, not me as an artist, but it's about beginnings and fresh starts. And so I'll kind of just talk about this very briefly, and then I just want to open it up for questions because you don't want to get me rambling or it's never going to end. But anyway, so I was doing a lot of research on creation myths, and I really love some would call the book of Genesis a creation myth, but in a different way. But I was more interested in the Popol Vuh, which is the Mayan creation myth, and there are some crazy stories in there about how we all came to be, one of which there's a god called Not Right Now. And this is an ancient written text, and I just liked that. I would like to be referred to Not Right Now at this point. Anyway, so I'm a narrative artist. I make only works on paper. I've created my own world that's gone through a lot of glorious things and a lot of awful things, and then it kind of ended. Some of you have seen the piece that's at the Fort Worth Modern with a guy hanging on a rope above this monstrous ocean. That was the ending of that chapter, and ever since then I've kind of been working my way through building other worlds, and this is the show that's about me really starting fresh. And so you see these look elemental. They look like a new beginning. There's a lot of moons rising and suns rising out of nowhere, and there's a lot of landscapes just falling into place, maybe not quite knowing how to do it because it's hard to start anew. But this is also, I always think of landscapes. I call what I do psychological landscapes. I think of landscapes in visual art for me as projections of the human emotional state. These are certainly projections of what my brain and heart feel every day. That's kind of the simple way to put it, but I have a lot of ways to answer questions in more detail or not, or you can just make me stop right now and we can move on, and I'm here all night as well. So that's all I want to say about these, but if anyone, should I open it up for questions, Talley, or do we have time?
Yes, I'd open it up for a few questions, and then we'll go to the main gallery. And
okay. Does anyone have any questions about a specific piece? Or
where are the people?
Well, there is a crowd of little heads here heading towards that. There's people behind your head, I think, John, somewhere around there in the little, yeah, Ted's pointing to it. But it's the early days. They are coming back. And they're actually gargantuan right now in my studio. So I'm making big pieces with these huge, enormous, crazy people. They're not crazy people, they're just very big. So you know how I always made, if you know my early work, the biggest any of my guys got was about this big. Well, suddenly they're larger than life. And they're mixed into the ocean and the stone, so they're kind of coming out of the elements, rock, fire, earth, air. Am I missing one? Ted.
I really love the fact that color has come into your work, and there's a really fun, subtle way, these pieces that I'm in love with that are not on white paper. What led you to that?
Oh, thank you. Well, you know, I'm always trying to go with, I don't want the time to be easily pinned down in my work. So these could be from, you know, way before humans roamed the earth in some ways, because anytime the men are in here now, they're vignetted, so they look like memories or projections to the future. And I don't want it to look like the 80s or the 20s. Like for me, these are of this unknown time period. So I got real sick of my harsh white paper. I say, even though I did make this one recently, but that strange, whatever color that is, made me, it kind of pressed forth the idea that I don't know when these are coming from. And they look more like relics, or you just can't, does that make sense a little bit? Yeah. And I've muddied things up in a way that I never did, and obviously you're right. I mean, color, even though it's sparse here, it's really important that that's coming forward. And if you think of any of my big multi-panel pieces, what I'm envisioning now, it might be hard to imagine, but imagine all of this coming together in one massive kind of epic scene. So that's the end goal. That might not happen for a few years, but I'm seeing all of this falling into place in a very large way. And I didn't think I was going to be ready for that anytime soon. After I almost died making some of these big pieces. I'm not being dramatic, it was awful. So, but yeah, I want to do that again. That sounds great. Anything else before we move into Aaron's room? Oh, Carson, my nephew has a question.
Draw a dino.
He said, draw a dinosaur. And I agree. We have some people in the room who have some of my, I'll draw you one very soon, Carson, I promise. Mariah?
Can you just elaborate on Castle Elementary, the title?
Yeah, thank you. So Castle Elementary is also the title of that one with the red, yellow, blue. And again, you know, that piece is definitely the strangest. It's the one-off of this show. Castle Elementary to me means I'm building like a fortress from almost nothing. So like those represent in a very, very non-specific way building blocks, like something that people would have in kindergarten, and then that's kind of rudimentary castle shape. And so everything in here feels like that attempt to start something that's going to be grand one day, but you only have so much to work with, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Somebody thought it, because I love TV so much, somebody thought it was, I guess it's the name of 2 TV shows that I don't watch. I stick with Forensic Files and Beverly Hills 90210, so I don't know what they, we got some fans. All right, you guys, anything else? One more. Do you have one? No? All right. I will make dinosaurs. Thank you guys for all the questions and all the support, and now we get to go into Aaron's.
I have another question. Do you do my talk?
Yeah. You're going to do way better than this. I can't wait to hear you talk.
Question.